Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call your mom's sister whose heroism is so storied it's been talked about for generations?
I don't know. What do you call it?
Why, you call her your fabled Valor Aunt.
Huh.
Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
See, I've been foreshadowing this joke for 2 weeks now. Originally, it was about insects, I think, but this is much classier.
Yeah, you've refined it.
A little unexpected. A little more wordplay. Well, folks, I'm your mostly heroic host, Madelyn.
I'm your evil host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning in to Talk This here this week. As you might have picked up from my, heavy on the quotation marks here, joke, this week we're going to be talking about Fable and Valorant. And I have to get here right off the bat, listeners, I admit it, I did not play either Fable or Valorant, marking the second time this year that I did not play, or I have not played one of the games in our pairings. However, I think I get a pass because neither of these games are playable on any of the systems that I own. And I own almost every system. They're only playable on various Xboxes and PCs. And we are a Mac household here at Talk This NYC HQ.
You see, though, I am looking at Fable's Wikipedia page, and it does say there is a Mac OS version.
You're right. The Mac OS version is a port of the original. It released in 2008 on discs. And I don't have a disk drive, nor do I have the cash to try to track down a used edition of a 12-year-old Mac game for disc.
She just doesn't have the dedication.
You're absolutely right. What I'm revealing to you, listeners, is that I am actually not that invested in this podcast. I was not going to get a disk drive for my Mac and hopefully get a game to ship to me that hasn't been played in a decade.
You've let down literally everybody.
I can feel the disappointment
in the whole
emanating
world
from all corners of the globe.
Yes.
Well, okay, so Emma has forced me into Fable. So let's talk about Fable here. It's an action RPG, formerly from Lionhead Studios, which is now defunct, and has now been taken over for the revival by Playground Games. Published by what I think was originally Microsoft Studios, but is now Xbox Game Studios.
Yeah.
The first one came out in 2004 for Xbox and PC. And then got kind of an extended cut in 2005. And then, yes, did release in 2008 for Mac systems. Now, whether it would play on my OS,
who knows?
Hard to say. We did not test it. And then it had a sequel in 2008 and a threequel in 2010, and then all sorts of various, little spin-off games in the meantime. But it has just, it's come back into the news in these past couple of months with that coveted, and finally slot from one of the Xbox game showcases for next gen.
Yeah, one of those trailers that means that it's actually not going to come for a while.
Yeah.
But they're working on it,
Someday.
One day.
So Fable, here we are in Madelyn's lore corner, takes place in the nation of Albion, which in the first game is sort of like feudal medieval Europe. And then the second game jumps forward to 500 years later to the Enlightenment, basically. And then the third game jumps forward 50 years to the Industrial Revolution. And Lionhead is a British studio, so the game is sort of infused with this very British, dry sense of humor. It's a real hallmark of the game. And in the first game, and you dared me to watch some of it as opposed to, because I couldn't play it. So I did watch somebody do a Let's Play of the prologue of the first game. And the character models are a little weird looking.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Yeah, they
Just
are.
gotta get that out of the way. Something about the size of their various appendages doesn't quite... It looks fine. I'm sure I would get used to it. But I was looking at it, I was like, this does feel very 2004, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I would argue that almost because they're so out of proportion, that actually makes them look a little better than if they were proportional from that
No,
time.
you're absolutely right. It does read now as a bit of a stylistic choice. That they just look a little bit off.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like, oh, the realism is bad. But I'm confident it's just that the realism is bad. Anyway, you play in this game as at the beginning you're not an orphan, but soon you are orphan.
Yes.
Boy.
Soon to be orphan.
And you become known as the hero of Oakvale. You're from the village of Oakvale, and one day, while you're running around learning about your power to do good or evil in your village, the bandits come, and they kidnap your sister, and they seem to murder both of your parents, although I think your mom survives.
You know,
But you don't know that.
That's just what the bandits do.
That's what bandits do, is they target soon-to-be orphans.
Yes.
And after that happens, you're taken in by Maze, a hero, capital H, who trains you to be a hero, capital H, yourself. And then there's all sorts of intrigue. You meet a blind seeress. She's your sister Teresa. The Bandit King took her. Evil dude called Jack of Blades. How do I get a name like that? Who is doing evil stuff and was the one behind your orphaning. And eventually kill him. Also, you're a descendant of an ancient royal bloodline, because of course you are.
Mm-hmm.
And all that good medieval RPG tropes.
Sure.
But Fable is most kind of notable for its aesthetic morality system. What do you think about that as a description?
Sure, that's fine.
Because throughout the game, you get to choose to make good and evil choices in your various quests. And as that happens, your character starts to look good. Like you develop, a hero with a positive alignment has a halo and sparkling light and butterflies. And an evil hero emits red haze and draws flies and glowing red eyes and grows horns.
Right.
If only the real world worked like that.
Yeah, that would be nice. Easy to tell people apart.
And it would be easy to tell that you were doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you woke up in the mirror one day and you're like, oh crap, like a little horn nub. Like maybe I should reinvest my stocks. Or whatever.
You know, I'm slightly worried with all the flies that are in my apartment.
You're right, there were a bunch of flies in my old apartment too. Emma,
They're coming.
our alignment.
They're judging us.
I was worried about the red haze. I thought it was just something wrong with my oven.
You did make it sound like it's just like there's choices though, like a Mass Effect type system.
Oh, not a Mass Effect type system, folks.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you can also just run around doing good and evil things. So like you can just punch people, for instance.
Yeah.
Anybody. You can just punch anybody if you want to become more evil. And I think you can eat chicks.
Yes,
Yeah.
crunchy chicks.
Yeah.
As opposed to vegetarian points for eating tofu,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed.
So yeah, there's a bit more to it in terms of like being able to adjust your alignment than just like the choices you make in the side quests or whatever. You also, like, as you're more good and evil, you can learn like different emotes. So like if you're evil enough, you can throw the middle finger if you want to.
Dang, that's edgy AF. Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and other things affect your appearance as well. Like you can eat and turn yourself fat. And like your clothing will have people react to you differently. Like people will think you're evil if you wear dark clothes. LOL.
evil or just goth?
Unclear.
Would it provoke the same reaction?
Probably in fake medieval Europe.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Hard to tell, but I think so. Fable is also apparently one of the most overhyped games ever.
Oh yeah, I mean one of the designers, if you don't know, it was Peter Molyneux. Molyneux?
I was looking it up beforehand, and I'm still not confident, but I think that's right.
Who you probably would know him mostly from the game where there's a whole bunch of people clicking on something until they got to the middle of it.
Oh, I forgot that was him.
Yeah. And he's since, I think he has since stepped out of game development after a pretty terrible Kickstarter project went badly. But yes, this is sort of where he cut his teeth, and he was very, very excited about it when it was in development.
It's gonna be the best game ever, says one direct quote.
Yeah, and I read about it, and you'd think looking at Fable is there is so much going on in Fable already, but apparently they didn't even deliver on all the things that they said was going to be in Fable.
Yes, no children in the first one.
Yeah, which I'm sort of surprised by. Considering how much you look at Fable and the amount of different things that you can do and the freedom that you have and all this sorts of stuff, and I'm sort of surprised out here in the wilds of 2020 that people were like, but where's the other stuff, right?
I know, it does already feel in many ways like a very big game for being 15 years old.
Yeah.
Especially given that, Fable 2, which, does take some of the things, the children's system does come in Fable 2, and perhaps that's why it's a little bit better received. But it has a ton of freedom and stuff that you would associate with open world style games now, that obviously in 2004, for a game that was originally being developed for the Dreamcast, feels like it should be impressive, and it got good reviews, to be clear. It's not like people were like, but where are my brethren, my baby boys? I mean, I'm sure people were like that, but not reviewers anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel very expansive, and despite Madelyn's lore corner, the story here is not the selling point, really.
Yeah.
It's the running around and making yourself look good and evil.
Yeah.
You can get married, though. Just no children.
Yes, you can woo the men and women.
In all the towns.
Yeah.
But don't worry, folks. One article told me specifically that abusing a spouse means you accumulate evil points.
Yeah.
So, breathe a sigh of relief.
Phew.
It seems like the new one. Have you read it all about the new one?
I haven't really. I saw the one, you mean the one that's coming out? When you say new one? Yeah. I mean, I saw the one trailer was it at the Game Awards? I think.
There may have been one there was one this July as well.
I've only seen one trailer that's following a fairy until the fairy gets
that's
eaten.
The trailer.
Yeah.
Well, there was some kind of leak about it, apparently. I mean, people have known this game was happening for a couple of years. But there was some kind of leak sometime in the past year where it's it seems like, and who knows, this could all be subject to change, but I think it's wild. It's Albion was destroyed by an asteroid that a mad king, wished into existence based on something from Fable 2 that they set that up as a possibility. So now it's you're going to have to time travel to save Albion. And your sister Teresa and the Heroes Guild are on another planet.
I mean, I guess it's all you mentioned at the beginning that each one goes forward in time, forward progress, right? So I guess that makes sense in terms of you go straight from Industrial Revolution to Space Age.
I guess, except that the Fable 3 was not as well received.
Sure. I mean, I imagine that's why there hasn't been a new installment for a while.
Yeah. Well, they were working on something called Fable Legends. That had like a different path for the hero. You're always called the hero. But in Fable Legends, you could play as the villain.
Oh. The villain of Oakvale.
I know. But it was like a free-to-play game that was in active beta, and then Microsoft was like, we're going to close the studio. And that was the end of that.
That's always how it happens, isn't it?
It does sound like it was not very good. I mean, not that you can always judge that from betas of where a game is going to go, but the things I was reading, the contemporaneous chatter about it, were players being like, yeah, this game was kind of bad.
Well then, maybe Microsoft did something right-ish.
Maybe. On the other hand, Fable 2, you have a dog companion.
Yes, you do.
So, should we really have shut it down?
No.
Probably not.
I mean, if they just should have brought the dog companion into this Fable Legends, and then the reception would have been so different.
You're absolutely right.
That's our game design, folks. That's our game design advice for you here, folks. Is not doing well. Players aren't liking it. Something's just not clicking. It's probably because you need a dog companion.
I don't know. I sometimes see some backlash on Twitter to the "Can you pet the dog?" thing. They're like, you know how hard it is to get people to pet the dog, and everybody is so focused on that and petting the dog. Pandering.
It's just free promotion at this point, you know?
I know, but I feel like I've seen that a couple of times. I've been like, really?
People just don't like things that are popular, is really how it goes, right?
I mean, ain't that the truth? Do you feel like every game from the early 2000s is having a resurgence right now?
What do you mean?
I feel like we've just been talking a lot of the old games we've talked about on the show recently have been like, and there's a reboot coming next gen.
I just think there's a lot of reboots in general in games. We've talked about this on an episode before. We've talked about reboots, remakes, a recent episode even.
It's very true. I know. I'm just saying, I think it's been interesting to me that since we've talked about that, I feel like almost every episode it's been like, and there's a new one coming in 2023.
We have also been talking about relatively beloved franchises recently, too.
Fair enough. Beloved Xbox franchises, I feel at such a weird distance from.
Well, it's because so many of them, I feel like so many of the Xbox franchises are, it's been a while since they were made. Like, they're just really, like, a lot of the big ones, it feels like there hasn't really been a standout title from any of them on, like, this generation, right? And this generation is when I really started paying attention to games that I can't play. So, considering that we didn't have an Xbox in childhood, I think it makes sense that there's, like, a distance there for us.
I do think this is exactly the kind of game we would have been very into in 2004, though.
Really? You might
exactly. Maybe. I don't know. It just feels like it's reminiscent to me, although not multiplayer, in some ways of, like, Gauntlet. Not the arcade game, right?
Yeah, I guess the style, the time period. I don't know what else would be reminiscent.
I guess so. I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, it's kind of a funny, weird RPG, which does feel like it. I don't know.
I guess when I was younger, I hated anything that was at all open-ended. So
that's fair.
I still have trouble with open worlds, but I didn't even like Civilization or even Age of Mythology, which I did like. I was never as into as you were because there were just too many options. Okay,
fair enough. It feels like the kind of game that I would have dug at a certain point.
Sure.
And now it's too dated for me to want to play it.
Well, you'll have to pick up the new one.
I won't, because I don't have an Xbox. So I actually won't have to pick up the new one. Unless they're going to bring it to Mac again, on disc.
Yeah, on disc. You'll buy a disc reader for that.
Look, they were selling, some of the reviews were selling it to me. They were like Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams type humor. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I know this is oversold. This just means that it's British and they occasionally make a joke. But still, it's like, oh, okay. Like dry humor.
Yeah.
But yeah. It'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see what... It feels like so much of what made Fable sort of a unique and interesting offering in 2004 is now pretty default. Right? It's an open world. Even the kind of sense of it has some humor. You can customize your character. Obviously, the kind of aesthetic-based morality is not something that you see in everything now in the same way as some of the other stuff.
I don't know. I think you can point to a lot of titles and say, like, well, this is like that in this sense, but I can't think of anything that's exactly like Fable.
That's fair enough. It'll just be interesting to see how do you take this thing that felt pretty expansive for 2004, and how do you capture that without just creating a gigantically overwhelming game in 2020.
Yeah.
Apparently through time travel.
Yeah, you gotta add the time travel and the space travel. That's what you do.
It really is. It's like they are progressing through a game of civilization here.
They're about to win, it seems like.
Are there other ways? I'm trying to think of, like, other fun ways a morality system could be implemented in aesthetic ways that aren't just like, you're an angel or a devil.
I mean, being able to throw the middle finger, that's pretty good. That's pretty tempting.
It would be so much more fun. Like, do you get to keep the emotes when you go back to being good?
I'm not sure, honestly.
It would be very fun to be the Halo dude and just be like, F you! And just immediately you flip to devil, and it's like, they've been fooled.
That's funny. No, I don't know if you get to keep the emotes or if it's like an evil threshold that you have to have in order to express yourself that way.
I'm giving free ideas to Playground Games right here. Free ideas.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the clearest way to do something that changes your appearance, right?
Just by good and evil?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very Jedi, very Knights of the Old Republic.
Well, I don't really know how you would change appearance on, like, any other sort of alignment.
I wish there were just more sliders, basically.
Sure, but, like, how do you look, like, chaotic neutral versus lawful neutral? What's the difference in appearance there?
I can demonstrate. Clickbait Boyfriend got a haircut today, and he did go from chaotic neutral to lawful neutral. Just in the span.
So you just get quarantine hair as you get more chaotic?
I mean, it's a fantasy RPG, so we can go a little crazier than that, but yeah. Like, the fantasy world equivalent of quarantine hair, absolutely.
Okay.
No, I was thinking it's like, so there are, like, different ways to be evil, right?
Okay.
And different ways to be good.
Sure.
Like, maybe your appearance changes differently based on, like, are you, like, violent evil? Like, are you, like, a
are you violent
abusing
evil,
your spouse
or are you
evil?
Committing white-collar crime? You just wear a suit.
Exactly.
Your hair becomes slicked back.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to see a more nuanced morality aesthetic.
Oh no.
Like, are you, share trending hashtags on Facebook good? Or are you, like, volunteer good? You an advocate? You just a kind person, good listener? You donate a lot of money? I think they should be tracking this.
Okay. Sure.
Also in this game, just to be clear, the choices you make in childhood do not carry over into your adult alignment, which is false.
Well, childhood's a tutorial, so...
That's correct.
Nothing you do in childhood really matters.
I suppose if you're a soon-to-be orphaned boy, then that might be true.
Yeah, just think of it as like it's like a hard reset on you, right? It's a traumatic experience.
I suppose so, yes.
Whatever
Aren't
you
I
were
glad?
before doesn't matter now that you have gone from soon-to-be orphan child to orphan child.
Oh boy. Yeah, the child doesn't regret for the rest of his life spending his last moments of his parents' life
Punching his dad in the face.
No. Well, maybe. But like one of the quests you do in childhood is like a woman asks you to see if her husband is like cheating on her.
Yeah.
And you do catch him in like being adulterous. And it's like, aren't I glad I sat there and watched them yell at each other for 5 minutes instead of going back to see my parents one last time. You don't think that haunts that boy?
I don't know. I mean, not as much as the boy who punched both of them, which is also totally possible. So.
I guess you're right. But that boy's not even sad. That boy is like, you know what? Good riddance.
Yeah, another one of the first quests is like there's a child being bullied, and you can either also bully the child and steal his teddy bear, or you can beat up the bully.
It's a tough choice.
It is. On one hand, you get a teddy bear. You know?
On one hand. I do wonder in this kind of game, like you were talking about Mass Effect, right?
Sure.
Or was it Mass Effect? And how overwhelmingly people pick the good options.
Yeah.
I wonder in a game like this, where the stakes are theoretically much lower, if you see a lot more evil play.
Well, I don't think the story significantly changes based on your alignment.
No, I actually don't know that it changes at all.
Yeah. The only thing that changes is actually like running around the world, how people react to you and stuff.
Yeah.
So I do think that's a little bit. I don't have stats on this one like I did for Mass Effect, but I think that's probably a little bit more friendly towards evil play, quote unquote. I did quotation marks, but you can't see it. Because there's not like a huge like with Mass Effect, like those things are determining the direction your story is going, right? Whereas this is just like, does this person like me or do they not?
I know, but that's why I'm sort of so interested in this game. Because when you think about it with a game like Mass Effect, of course it makes sense that nobody wants to play through a whole game, let alone 3 whole games, with crappy, evil choices.
Yeah.
Unless they're doing it, like, certainly not the first time through.
Yeah.
Anyway. But in a game like this, where not only can you kind of change it back over time, I do still wonder, though, how good are people? How strong is the pull towards being a hero in a game when there's no stakes?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I was thinking about this a little bit. I played a little bit of Outer Worlds like a year ago or something. And like in that's one where like you can just like kill whoever you want, basically, is one of the things. And I'm like, okay, but who does that, like, at least their first time through? Because that means you can like lock yourself off of lots of quests. You know?
Yeah.
So I was very curious. It's like, it seems like a lot of work to something that a lot of players aren't going to do.
Yeah. But it makes for fun press.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also
Which
true.
is probably, that's got to be where the value is coming.
Sure.
Because I don't know. It's hard for me, even in this game, to imagine myself doing too much evil stuff. Even though the evil glowing haze and flies sounds pretty dope.
Sounds cooler than the Halo, to be honest.
You know what? Can't argue with that. Well, any closing thoughts on Fable before we move to something completely different?
Its intro theme is also composed by Danny Elfman. of movie fame. I think he did the Raimi Spider-Mans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just saw it and I was like, oh, I know him. Even though I didn't really. Oh, yeah, like Edward Scissorhands and stuff. So, that's neat. Fun trivia for ya.
Do you think that they hired him just because it was like a medieval fantasy game and his name is Elfman?
No. I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about Valorant.
Oh, wow. He also did 50 Shades of Grey films.
Nice.
He really,
same idea.
He did the theme. He did the theme for both Desperate Housewives and The Simpsons. This man has been around.
He's got range.
Okay, we can move on to Valorant now.
After this Danny Elfman tangent.
Trivia corner.
You're right. Emma's Trivia Corner. Well, Valorant is a free-to-play first-person shooter, or as if you have it in my notes, F2P FPS. From Riot Games for Windows and Windows only.
Yes.
At this time. Although maybe mobile soon. People were like data mining. But for now, Windows only. And it's a team-based 5v5 shooter. Kind of like Counter-Strike Global Offensive, if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or for the more probably popularly familiar title, it's kind of like Overwatch.
That too. But it's really like CSGO. I was reading about it, I was like, this is the same game. Anyway, it went into beta this April, and then officially released at the beginning of June. And this Monday, they're going into their third act. Tomorrow, I guess.
Exciting.
Which is their, like, it's not exactly a season. They have, like, a weird structure of, they have acts and they have episodes. But they're probably releasing, like, a new character or a new map or something. It's still secret. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the in.
We're sorry. Usually we have the in.
Usually I have the in at Riot Games.
But now we're unplugged currently.
I was pretty shocked that Riot hasn't made it. Like, this is their first game since League of Legends. Which, granted, is like 20 games, but still.
I mean, they've been making updates for League of Legends since then, right? Like, there's always new content for League of Legends.
That is not for me saying that they have done nothing since 2009 or whatever, when League of Legends launched. It was just astonishing to me that League of Legends, it shouldn't be, but is such a moneymaker that they did not need to make a new game for like a decade.
Yeah. I mean, when you got it, you got it.
Ain't that the truth? So in Valorant, in like the standard mode, you play 25 matches.
I know, I saw that and it felt like a lot, but I think the matches are pretty quick.
They're pretty quick,
yeah,
is what it sounds like. The rounds, I think, at maximum are like 100 seconds long. Because in the game, you've got an offensive team and a defensive team, and so the attacking team has this bomb, it's called the Spike, that they have to take to one of the bomb drop points and then activate. I guess it could take a little bit, like it's unclear to me if it's 100 seconds for the whole round or if it's 100 seconds from when you place the bomb, because I have not played. But regardless, you get the idea of, okay, this is pretty quick moving thing. And it's all about strategy and skill in Valorant. The idea being you're on the same map over and over and over again, and you're trying to predict how your enemies are going to react and move on the same map, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, one thing that sticks out about Valorant is it has characters in sort of the same way that Overwatch does, but it's not very concerned about them, to be honest, in the way that...
there's no... Like, I always think Overwatch, I mean, whatever. Good for them for at least doing some, money grab efforts at diversity, right? But I always think Overwatch is kind of silly with all of its lore, to be honest. Not in a I'm making fun of it way, just in a it always strikes me as like, this can't be what people are here for. And Valorant doesn't bother with any of that.
Yeah. Like, they had a cinematic release trailer, and that's about as much of what I've seen, at least, unless there's some content out there that I'm not aware of. But that's about as much as I've seen in terms of, like, giving the characters personality outside the game. Totally. Yeah, like, they had, like, their characters, and they're voiced, and they have different, like, personalities,
abilities,
I guess.
Too.
Right, and they have different abilities. In terms of, like, making them strategically sound to pick. But there's not much emphasis on really giving the game, like, I guess flair is what I would call it. It's very much feels like it's like this is a skill-based thing, right? Like, it's not, you're not here to have fun. That's not really the right way to put it. But, like, it's about
it kind of is.
Winning. Yeah.
This is definitely a game that has, is already starting to do this, right? But has esports ambitions. Not surprising from Riot, given that League of Legends is such a huge player in that space.
Yeah.
But this is a game that is really designed to appeal, I think, to pros.
Yeah.
Intentionally. And not necessarily, not that it's not designed to appeal to casual players, but there's definitely a lot of things about this that are specifically catering to people that are serious about their online games.
I do think, like, there's rank system, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that is sort of meant to separate, like, pro players from people who are playing it casually, in a way. But yeah. It definitely doesn't feel like it's, like, wants everybody to play it in the same way.
They made a really big deal in the lead up to launch about hyping up all the things that they had done to make it run super duper freaking smoothly.
Yeah.
They invested a lot in fancy servers that talk to your computer like twice as often as most servers do, basically, and bragging a lot about low latency and like peaking distance, which is something I had never even heard of before because I'm not into these games. But the idea being, like, how do I even explain this? I can read the quote. So, like, apparently in most games, because of how the servers work or the way your computer talks to the server, when you go around a corner, you have a split second before you can see the other player before they can see you, even if they're looking at you, basically. And so they've made a big deal out of trying to, like, cut down on that time.
Interesting.
Which is like, what the heck is that? Like, and they, like, made a big deal out of, like, we can't totally eliminate it, but we figured out that, like, this many milliseconds still feels fair.
Huh.
They're very into fairness for Valorant.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I was, like, reading that, I was like, I've never heard of this. And granted, I play none of these games, but still, I was like, this is technical.
Yeah, I watched, like, a 15-minute, like, tips for beginners Valorant video. And I was, like, a little overwhelmed. It wasn't even that complicated, but it was a lot about, like, learning the recoil patterns of guns, basically. In terms of getting, like, the least amount of spread possible. So he was, like, demonstrating how you have to sort of pull the joystick or pull your mouse, I guess, for this would be, in the direction away from the recoil to keep it steady. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah, they're really into when you're running, it's really hard to shoot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the first tip in that video was you have to stand still before you shoot. Because moving means that, like, the bullet is not going anywhere near the crosshair. And even when you're standing still with the recoil, generally the bullets aren't going where the crosshair on your screen is. So you have to be aware of that and learn that.
Yeah, that was one of their first big patches, is that players were like, there's not enough recoil after, like, you recover too quickly when you stop running. Which is just like, this is a game I'd be very bad at. Like, let's just get that out in the open. Everything about Valorant is designed to be a game that I would be bad at.
There's a huge emphasis on headshots, too, in that
Great.
You only want to be getting headshots, basically, because body shots just won't kill the opponent fast enough.
Let me tell you, I just played a level in Yakuza that's like you're in a car shooting people on motorcycles.
Yeah, but not killing anybody.
That was, nobody dies. Let me tell you how hard that was. I had to lower it had to ask me to lower the difficulty, and at first I declined, but I did. I only barely got through it. So just to emphasize that in a game that is really not a shooter, that had one shooter level, it took me like 7 tries.
To be fair, that might be part of the problem, right?
I realize that, but still. I'm like thinking about myself I'm thinking about myself on voice chat with people. Just like random people. Just so disappointed in me.
Yeah, that is the thing about Valorant and games like Valorant, right? Is that in a lot of ways, they do require you to be on voice chat because a lot of it is about communicating with your teammates because they're team-based games rather than solo games like Fortnite or something like that.
And I feel like in something like this where it's 5v5, that becomes weirdly more important than a game. I mean, definitely more important than a game when it's like 25v25, right?
Yeah.
But I would say even more so than a game where it's like you're on a team of 2, like, or a team of 3, like in, oh boy, which one's the team of 3 one? I played this.
I don't know. Apex Legends.
Remember. Apex Legends, thank you. I mean, Apex Legends is of course specifically designed to not really need voice chat, but I didn't miss it at all when I was playing that. I felt like I could do a pretty good job following people, but this one feels like it's so, like, you have to have a coordinated strategy, that if you're not on voice chat, it's bad.
Yeah.
But I would never be on voice chat for a game like this.
Yeah. I just don't like voice chat. I just can't do it, right? Like, I can't go on a voice chat with strangers.
I feel like the only way I could be on voice chat for this game is if I was playing, but Josh was the voice.
Yeah.
And every once in a while when I went like, ooh, on thing, he'd be like, oh, my girlfriend is watching. Like, she's very into the game.
Oh, no.
I feel like that would work okay.
But since you have 5 teammates and all those teammates have their own special abilities that work with each other's, right? That should work with each other's. You really cannot, be effective on a team if you're not communicating, which does create a barrier of entry for people like me, even if I had a computer that could run this, which I do not.
Yeah.
Talk about latency.
No, apparently Valorant needs pretty low specs.
I still don't trust
Microsoft Surface specs, but it apparently does run. You don't need like a super swanky computer to run it well. But is Valorant just a scheme to give the Chinese our data, Emma?
They've said it isn't. So it's better than saying yeah.
Is it though?
I mean, it's just like people didn't like the anti-cheating software, right?
Well, it's partially owned by Tencent, which is, of course, was just at the center of this government brouhaha.
Right.
And yeah, it does have, so as part of their, commitment to this being a very competitive game, Valorant comes with super aggressive anti-cheat software called Vanguard. I feel like this is relevant to last week's discussion about DRM and all that stuff. I think the new DRM is anti-cheat software. In terms of the way people react to it, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares anymore. They don't own their game. But they do care that the anti-cheat stuff is doing...
By gosh, I want to cheat in my game.
Well, I think it's not. So the problem is, and I can understand the position that the developers are in. So the problem is that now people have figured out ways, I mean, maybe people always knew how to do this, but it feels like more recently, people have figured out ways to run cheats that can get by more surface level anti-cheating software.
Right.
Cheats that run, like, deeper in your computer, like drivers you've installed, or, I don't understand technology, right? But it's like driver level stuff that's, like, below the surface
of
your computer. And so, to catch that stuff, you need an anti-cheat software that is deeper into your computer.
Right.
Basically. And that's what Vanguard does to, like, the kernel level, which I definitely know what that is.
Deep in your computer. It's in there. It's deep in there.
And so it means it launches, like, when your computer launches, the anti-cheat software has to launch with it to make sure you're not running cheats. Basically, anytime you launch your computer. Which is already that feels like a little bit like, that's pretty invasive. I'm not playing Valorant every time I'm turning on my computer. But the double problem is that for a while, at the beginning, it would decide on its own which drivers were suspicious and shut them down without asking you. So people's mice, their keyboards, their, like, cooling fans would sometimes get marked as suspicious for who knows what reason, and the kernel cheating software would shut them down. So your mouse wouldn't work.
I mean, that mouse is being pretty sus, you know.
Pretty sus. Been injected. Speaking of voice chat games. So they've now made it so that to play, it'll tell you the things manually that you need to disable. And they have said, you're welcome to uninstall this, you know, between playing Valorant. You just have to reinstall it and then restart your computer when you play it. But, of course, that would mean just uninstalling and reinstalling if you're worried about it at all times. And they have said it's not collecting all of your data. But
who knows,
it probably
really
is. It probably is. They're probably not sending it to anyone, but they could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, well.
That's how everything works these days, though, right? Like, everything has my data. Are they sending it places? Maybe.
I find it hard to be that protective of my data.
I guess so. It does make me a little uncomfortable. I sometimes flash back to, like, 8th grade civics when we were going through, like, the amendments, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, asking, like, theoretical questions, and, like, I was the only one who had a problem with, like, somebody looking through my files. Like, in that whole classroom, I was the only one that raised my hand. I was like, actually, I would have a problem with that. It's my stuff. I don't want the FBI looking at it. And I just remember that, and I think, wow, the world is very complacent about this, isn't it?
I mostly just mean, like, I don't really care that much if Facebook has my browsing history.
I guess so.
I probably should care, but I find it hard to care on a personal level.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you gonna find?
Yeah.
I check my email a lot. Great.
She's spending so much time on Zoom.
I look at the Wikipedia pages of exactly 2 video games every 2 weeks.
What does that mean? What is she doing?
Anyway, Valorant had a pretty interesting, and I think we're going to see more and more games do this, because it seems to have worked really well for them, a pretty interesting marketing scheme for their beta on Twitch. Did you read about this?
No, I didn't.
So the only way to get access to the beta was through watching streams on Twitch, and the streamers would drop keys.
Right.
It was the only way to get into the beta, which of course made it the most popular game on Twitch for a while this spring. And also prompted some, like, shady stuff where people were playing 24/7 streams of, like, pre-recorded footage, but they were marking it live because you could only get the drops on the live things, and Twitch had to, like, make a new policy that you weren't allowed to do that as a result. But it does, I mean, that does feel like a really good strategy to me for any free-to-play. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
I thought so. But then again, Ninja says it's unplayable now, so...
well then.
2 days ago. He's pissed about cheaters. And latency, I think. So much for all the stuff.
Just gotta go back to Fortnite.
I guess so. He's been playing Among Us too lately, I think.
It's great, but only with his bro friends. No,
I mean, can you imagine?
no women
Like,
allowed.
thank God. I mean, fair enough. Like, not that. I just meant, like, imagine playing a random game. It's like, oh, who's here?
The emphasis was
Ninja.
supposed to be on bro, not on with his friends. But yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, I'm playing my first game of Among Us. I don't have enough friends to play with, so let's just go into a matchmaking lobby.
With the
Who's here?
ninja.
Tyler.
Oh no.
Do you think he would get ejected right away?
I would eject him. I don't trust him.
Sus. Yeah, I mean, I did also read that apparently with COVID, and like everybody being on the internet all the time, basically, that some of their ambitions for latency and stuff were kind of ruined by that.
The inconvenient plague.
Ah, the plague.
Ruining our latency and our peaking distance.
Peaking distance is wild, yo. I still think that's wild. I also find, for all of these games, the constant patching and the nerfing this and the buffing that. I'm so fascinated. I'm not fascinated. Like, I'm fascinated from a very removed place.
Sure.
Some things I get fascinated about in the, like, I want to read about this, even though I don't know what it is, kind of fascinated. These kinds of patches I am not fascinated about in that way, but more in the vague sense of, like, how do you make these tiny decisions, like, 3 times a month?
I mean, a lot of ways, these live service games are like, just, like, early access in these live service games. It's just like you're playtesting on the fly, right? So, it's just all about listening to player feedback in terms of making sure that everybody feels like things are fair.
And Riot in particular has a reputation for being really finicky with League of Legends, I think. That basically whenever a character on that starts to get, like, above their proportional win percentage, that immediately they're like, alright, we gotta fix this. But it's just fascinating. It feels so different from... I mean, of course it does, but it feels so different from other kinds of game development. Not just from the perspective of, like, you know, obviously they've committed to roll out, like, 6 new agents and a bunch of new maps every year, which already feels like that's a lot of work. Like, you're continuing to produce content. But to be doing that and also be constantly, like, betaing it, basically, and just, like, constantly analyzing how to tweak things, just feels like a whole different level of work.
Sure.
On top of all of the technical stuff that I read about this game that I never think about. I do not ever think about servers, except sometimes when I'm playing Fall Guys. But even that only in the context of, like, oh, that's weird that guy is, like, laying on the ground and moving. So it's interesting. This reading about Valorant made me think about things that are not part of my gaming repertoire.
Right.
Which was fascinating. Also, apparently, right now, the defensive team, the defenders win more often and kill more people.
Interesting.
Which apparently is super normal. Like, at first I was like, wow, that's bad. Like, that's unbalanced. But apparently it's pretty normal in a game like this because the people are still figuring out the maps, basically. And as the teams figure out the maps, that the attackers should balance out. Which is just like, man, that's not ever something I had thought about. But that makes sense.
Anything else, or should we move into this mashup?
Cheaters from Valorant are perma-banned forever, even if you cheated in the beta.
Wow.
So don't cheat, kids.
Harsh.
Alright, let's mash.
All
It's
right.
be a disaster.
You're a secret agent, let's say, with some sort of, supernatural ability. And you're sent around on missions that you can sort of partake in various ways, right? Like you can take different paths to solve the mission, and you can act in different ways during the mission. And like when you get back to home base too, you can like do what you want and act the way that you want, which you either wear a dark spy suit or a white spy suit, let's say. Or you start sparkling, which makes your spy work harder if you're good. The flies also make the spy work harder.
So you're incentivized to stay neutral.
I'm just throwing out ideas here. So it's like Fable, except you're a secret agent with some powers. Which sort of is similar to the Heroes Guild in the thing, right? Except you're a spy. It's like James Bond skin.
This is growing on me more than I thought it would. At first I was like, this is dumb. It's a dumb idea.
You have no trust in me.
Well, I was so fixated on the idea of like a 5v5 medieval combat game.
Oh, I see. Well, you could do that too. Somebody's
like,
on the catapult.
Yeah, a catapult, like you got a knight character, like an archer character. You can have like a sorcerer, that kind of thing.
It's like serious, totally accurate battle simulator.
Yes. I don't know what the bomb equivalent is for medieval though. Maybe it's something it's gotta be like a magic thing.
Yeah.
But I think that based on how you like your win record maybe, or like your play, something about the way you play, haven't decided quite yet, it has to affect how your characters look.
Maybe it's like if you win by killing a lot versus just like fulfilling your objective.
Yeah. How many people do you unnecessarily murder?
Yeah.
Maybe there are like peasants around too. Throw some NPCs in.
Some collateral damage.
Yeah.
That would add an interesting element to the play that I'm not sure so many people would like, in that you could be thrown off by someone who is actually an NPC thinking that they're a threat.
Maybe you have a team, maybe there's 5 neutral members.
That are just hanging out?
Yeah.
They're just tasked with going about their business.
Yeah. And you're like, wonder who that is. It's Ninja.
Ninja's buying some apples over at the apple stall.
Some lemons.
No. Oh no, Ninja was collateral damage.
I would be more likely to play a 5v5 medieval battle simulator than I would be Valorant.
I mean, there is absolutely no way that could be competitive in any real sense, so...
Why not? I don't understand why not.
I don't know. Just because the neutral party is just too random, I think.
We can take out the neutral party for competitive play, that's fine.
Okay. Doesn't that, take out the core of the game, though?
Like, there have to be NPCs, right? Like, that's fine. They can be randomly controlled. I don't need them. They can be AI. It probably doesn't work with real people. Like, we'll cut that in beta.
Okay.
The real people playing as the NPCs.
But I just wanted to live my best life as a medieval dressmaker or something. While a magical war goes on outside.
Yeah.
Be very disappointed when that feature is cut.
I know, me too. Everyone will be like, remember those days? That's how you'll know who the real old guard is.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I'm really just creating some kind of like PvP World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Aren't I?
Yeah, you are.
Which, you know what? I think people would like.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just the neutral party is funny, but I get the medieval team shooter thing appeal.
But yeah, I think your characters have to change. So yeah, based on how many people you kill, how often you win, You can choose to, when you kill someone, you can choose, like, how you emote afterwards. So, like...
So, like, if you floss in their body, that makes you more evil? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I think this captures some of the dry British humor
Sure.
of Fable.
Yeah, yeah.
With the cold, tactical focus of Valorant.
Yeah, sure. Sure does.
Your game sounds pretty good too, but
Thanks.
I don't know. I think mine's the one that's gonna make it big.
Okay.
Until Ninja says there's too many cheaters.
We'll work on we'll go deep into the kernel level with our anti-cheat software.
Beyond the kernel level.
Even
the
deeper.
popcorn level.
The popcorn level.
The cob.
I'm sure that's what it's called.
It definitely is. Well, listeners, can you write in to confirm that the level below the kernel level in the computer is called the corn cob? Do you like games like Valorant? Do you have more experience than Emma and I in the free-to-play shooter space? And do you welcome the relief from all the Overwatch lore trappings? Or do you miss all of our backstory? Did you play Fable sometime in the early 2000s and enjoy it? Well, if you did, you should drop us a line on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. So on those platforms, you can see our occasional thoughts on games and gaming news. Obviously on YouTube, you can see Emma's various YouTube series, On Topic Corner, where she kind of gets into the nitty-gritty of something specific in a game she's been playing lately, and Play This, which deals with gameplay as storytelling in various forms. So you should definitely check those out. Also on social media, you'll be able to keep up with the latest on our website, www.talkthispodcast.com. If you go there, you can see all the latest news about the show. The About Us page that's very up to date, I'm sure. All the games that are in the hat that Emma's going to pick from. Did you add more games to the hat?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That was a couple weeks ago. I just remember months of you being like, I need to add more games to the hat.
No, there's 8 games in each hat now.
Excellent. And also on the website, you can check out our blog featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend, which I guess is coming back soon, right? The demo for Melody of Memory is coming soonish, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you pick up the demo, sure.
I mean, I need the hot takes. And also Split Screen, where Emma and I are watching My Hero Academia and Coffee Prince. On a side note, if you have any recommendations of where we can now watch Coffee Prince, now that Tubi has delisted it, please, please, please drop me a line.
It is a tragedy, honestly.
It's gonna be fine. We've got a plan, Split Screen readers. Don't worry.
Honestly, it might make us more regular with it,
So it can only be a good thing. Also coming very soon, probably Monday, if I can get Clickbait Boyfriend to get his one-line thoughts together, is a new Coronanime, I guess is how you say it, recap of my last, 4 months of TV watching. So it's a good time to check out the website. And finally, if you're a fan of the show, why don't you make it official and subscribe? We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find Talk This. Very hard not to say Overwatch this time, because we've been talking about Overwatch, but I did it.
Good.
Listeners, I did it. Well, next week, it's the end of another 6 weeks, people, which means that Emma and I are going to be talking about the games that we have been playing.
Heck yeah.
These are always fun ones, so you should definitely tune in. And then in 2 weeks, we're talking about what games, Emma?
For our old game, we are talking about Super Meat Boy.
Nice.
And for our new game, we are talking about Ghost of Tsushima.
Nice. I wonder which of those I'll play.
I imagine Super Meat Boy is cheaper.
So. I mean, that's for sure. we'll just have to see if I can talk Clickbait Boyfriend into, well, I guess it would still be on my credit card, wouldn't it? But, we'll see. Well, that'll be an interesting one. A samurai who cuts through meat.
As they do.
As they do. A Wagyu. Super Wagyu boy.
There you go.
Well, be sure to tune in for that in 2 weeks. And next week for our side quest. As always, listeners, it's been a pleasure to have you with us on this week's episode of Talk This. And Emma, do you want to do the sign-off?
This week, I wish you luck with your peeking distance.